humans, and welcome to the last episode of today, right? The last chapter in the trilogy that was today. And the reason is I got stuck in some real bad traffic. Oh yeah. Well, let's be productive with our commute here, and let's talk about what we know about AAA games now. Guys, these revelations from the Xbox and Sony case have been amazing, right? I've been following it, and the things that we learn are nothing short of breathtaking, of these two companies going back and forth at it, trying to either close this deal or prevent the deal from closing. And let me tell you this, the figure we heard today from Microsoft and from Sony was about $200 million per AAA game, with employees running in the 200 to 300s. Right? That's how much it costs. Right? So you're averaging, right, on the low end. I think Verizon West was quoted at 212 with 300 employees. There was another game quoted at 220 with 200 employees. So you're talking about $1 million ahead there, you know, with a 5-year, you know, 4-year development cycle. That is nuts. That is absolutely nuts, man. I can't believe that they're spending that kind of money, and sometimes they deliver such turds, right? You would think that if you spend that much money, you would get the cream of the crop, and that's not always the case. Some of these games, something happens along the way, you know, and things don't go as they planned. Some guy racing over there, and things don't go as they planned, and then you have these challenges here, which, yikes, right? So that is why you're seeing a lot of remakes, making a lot of safer choices. That's why you're seeing games that are pretty much the same game, just maybe a little bit of a difference, because you can't spend this kind of capital and not get a return on it, right? And figures is all we got today, and some wonderful figures, guys. When it comes to Modern Warfare, the figures we got were something akin to this. I'm not a reporter, nor I came to be. I'm just giving you my opinions, okay? And from what I can remember, and it looks like Modern Warfare, Call of Duty, produces about $800 million for Sony. That is why they're so invested in this stuff. They do not want to lose their nut. $800 million is almost $1 billion, guys. They can't lose that. That is why the resistance to this deal. I think that they realize at some point that they're not going to be able to stop it, but they want to make sure that they keep their nut. They want to make sure that they want to keep on making the money. Because of that, they had to reveal a couple of things, like they have about a million players that on the PlayStation 5, that's all they play. They don't play anything else. They bought the console specifically to play that. That is nuts, right? It looks like 70% of the time they're playing that game. That was interesting to learn, of course. And you know, it's quite a bit of revenue. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. Nothing to sneeze at. And what that tells me, just by, you know, common sense, is that Starfield was way over the $220 million mark. That game has to be at least 275, 300 with all the delays and, you know, all the backing that Microsoft gave afterwards, you know, after they acquired Bethesda. There has to be buku bucks being poured into that game. That game has to succeed, and it has to come out quality. They don't want no Fallout 76 scenarios, you know what I'm saying? So this deal is pivotal. We're learning so much from this, and a lot of it we learned is because the redacted documents, believe it or not, even companies with this much money, right? I know that we're really hard on smaller companies when they do stupid stuff, but even these companies with all this money There's some documents that are just, you know, sharpied out in order to not release information. Well, of course, when you just sharpie it out and you scan it, some of it bleeds through, and you can, you know, mine that information. That is what a lot of reporters have done. That's what revealed so many companies that Microsoft could be acquiring, like Square Enix, for example. Of course, we know about Sega. That had been rumored for a long time. But they, you know, their first batch of companies was like 1,000 when they first started talking about acquiring studios. And then when they got down to the major ones that they wanted to acquire, it boiled down to 20, right? It's a lot harder to buy Japanese studios, but it's easier to buy American ones. Man, I'm telling you, if they would have acquired Sega, that would have been it. Seeing a Sega themed Xbox would be the dream of a lifetime for me, let me tell you that. So we're learning so much of the industry, guys. I love talking about the business side of video games, because it really challenges a lot of the preconceptions that we have sometimes about video games. Because when you're making a video game, you're essentially making a bet. You don't know that people are going to like it or not, especially with this development time. If you're talking about a video game that takes, you know, 5 years or 4 years between titles, I mean, people become parents in that time. People change as people. You might not have the same fan base. You know, video games have become so large that, of course, now you do. And for newer gamers, you know, that's not a problem. For older gamers, that's when you really transition out of things, right? And these development cycles really present a challenge. Really present a challenge to these guys, because by the time they put out the game, maybe something else better came out, especially if you're doing a sequel. That is insane. And it's a bet that you have to win, because if you make a game for over $200 million, say at the low end that they spoke about, Horizon West, $212 million, you have to profit $212 million in order to recoup your costs, right? That's a reason of microtransactions. That's a reason of trying to cut costs and doing electronic delivery and trying to go digital completely. That's the reason you want to license things out and try to recoup your costs by any way possible, because the costs are only going up. Inflation is going up. That means that people want more money, right? They want bigger salaries, and you're going to have to do something, right? You're not going to reduce your budget. If you're the one reducing your budget, you're probably going to be the company that loses. But from everything that was said today, guys, this is what I surmise, and this is just my own opinion. It looks like Microsoft should be able to close this. I think that PlayStation and the FCC really don't have a real good leg to stand on, because by its own admission, PlayStation has been keeping games away from Microsoft, number one. Number two, you have a third player that Sony just wants to not even talk about, nor the FCC, which is Nintendo, which is the one that's selling like bonkers, right? So gamers have a choice. These are just three options. Even if Microsoft does acquire Activision, they're in no way going to have a monopoly on the business. It's just, you know, the numbers don't bear it out, and it's going to be a hard-fought battle for Sony to keep on going this way. They're just wasting money on lawyers, even though the England might have an issue, maybe a side of Europe. But if they can button up America, that should be the end of it. People are going to demand, you know, their Modern Warfare, their Call of Duty, and they're going to demand to be, you know, serviced by these companies, right? Everybody wants profit. In the end, these companies will pay the politicians, and people are going to get their games. I mean, that's really what usually happens. Guys, what a great day. I'm glad I was able to get a third episode on here. This traffic is something else. Remember, on your way out, if you could hit that like button for me, I really do appreciate it. It really has been helping with the channel growth, you know, and that motivates me to keep making videos. And multitasking here is I'm changing lanes, trying to get back to the beach. Oh man, the first thing I do when I get home is I go right to the water's edge and I just sit there for 10 minutes and take in the view. All right, guys, I will catch you on the next one. Take care.